Very good. Well, welcome everybody to our webinar for Magento 2, why and how to upgrade your store from Magento 1 to Magento 2. Had a lot of registrants here. Appreciate the good interest in what we're sharing with you today. We've got a lot of really good information. Scott, how would you preview what we're covering today?
I think today is all about thinking kind of from the backward in about how to create value for customers and how to create an experience that's going to make them want to be loyal to your brand.
Exactly right. Well, let's do a little bit of intros here. My name is Eric Young. I'm the President and Creative Director of EY Studios. We're an enterprise-level Magento solutions partner. We're also named Commercial Partner of the Year by Magento last year. And we've got the distinction of having done a lot of stores on the Internet Retailer Top 1000. And Scott?
Yeah, and Eric, it's great to be with you today. We've done a lot of these webinars over the last 10 or 15 years.
Oh, that's right.
I've seen UI Studios grow, and I think winning and becoming the Partner of the Year last year for Magento is a huge accomplishment. My company, Exclusive, has been around since 1997 doing marketing for online retailers, and a few years ago we started Grow by Data, which provides data services to online retailers and data migrations. We've made the Inc. 5000 the last six of the last 7 years in a row. We've been a Google partner since the program started.
Very good. I'm joined here by Kate Wicker of EY Studios. How's it going, Kate?
It's going great. How are you?
Right, well, you can brag on yourself a little bit. Tell us about your distinction.
Sure. I'm a solutions engineer here at EY Studios and a Magento certified solution specialist.
Right. I'm really glad you're here. If you weren't here, this webinar would not go very well. So I'm very glad you were not sick today. All right. Well, here's the big question. I think a lot of people are asking themselves why they're on this webinar in the first place. Should I migrate to Magento 2? And my answer is no. Don't migrate to Magento 2. I think a lot of people, it's a needle off the record moment, maybe, across the country. But the real answer is it's not about migrating. It's about upgrading to Magento 2. And it may sound like semantics, may sound like I'm splitting hairs, but throughout the webinar, we'll be talking about how upgrading, the mentality of upgrading is really key to building your business on Magento 2. What do you think, Kate?
Absolutely. I think it's very important that you never make a lateral move, especially when you're replatforming.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, when you're moving houses, you never want to pick up all the junk you already have and just move it to the new house. This is a good opportunity for you to analyze what it is you already have, what needs to stay, what needs to go, what needs to change.
That's a good analogy. I like that with the house. It really is. I mean, you're uprooting everything when you migrate or when you upgrade. All right, so let's talk about the agenda here. I'm going to start it off by making sure you really are upgrading and not just migrating, as we're talking about. Then I'm going to turn it over to Kate. She's going to talk to you about the scores of new features loaded into Magento 2. And Scott's going to finish this up by talking about how to migrate successfully to Magento 2. All right. So let's talk about you guys. We've got a lot to share with you about Magento. Let's talk about your particular situation and identify where you're at. So the first question is, are you on Magento 1 Community? Are you on Enterprise? Or are you new to Magento? Maybe you've joined this webinar. You've heard a lot about the M2 upgrade. You want to see what it's all about. Hopefully you fall into one of these buckets. If not, I don't know if this is the webinar for you. But if you fall into one of these three, we definitely have something for you on today's webinar. So we actually have a poll. What is the biggest concern about moving to Magento 2? So let's launch that. Several options for you. Scott, you want to walk us through the options and kind of your thoughts overall on the poll?
Sure. So think about, a lot of the merchants on this webinar today are on Magento 1. And what's holding you back? What are your biggest concerns about going to Magento 2? Is it cost versus benefit? So you think it's going to be really expensive and you're not sure you'll get the benefit for it? Is it impact to your current tech infrastructure? So maybe you're wondering about making it compatible with ERP systems or order management, or maybe you just have some pending projects there. Are you concerned about getting all the data moved over? Are you just too busy and you know it's going to take a lot of time to plan and migrate and upgrade, and so you're holding off because of that? Or are you concerned about just the business disruption? So there may be bugs that impact sales, your SEO may go down. So just use your best. If this doesn't fit you, if you're already on Magento 2, this doesn't apply. If you're not migrating, it may not apply, but give us your best answer.
All right. Let's close the poll, see what our results are. All right, so Scott, what's your take on the results there?
It's interesting. So according to kind of popular rating, moving data and business disruption are kind of the leaders. Cost benefit is high. It sounds like everybody has more time than they need because no one's being held back by bandwidth. On the business disruption side, I think it's interesting because, and Kate, you'll probably get into this about the stability of the Magento 2 platform. So I think these are things maybe you can touch on as we go through the features a little later in the webinar.
Absolutely.
Very good. Thanks for participating in the poll. So again, let's talk about how to make sure you're upgrading to Magento 2. And we want to talk about some common things that we hear at EY Studios about Magento 2, some of the concerns. Kate, we get these all the time when we talk to merchants. And one of the first ones is there's a lot of hype about M2, but it's probably just an inconsequential version upgrade. It's like hitting the button on your iPhone just to go to the next version. It's not really that big of a deal. And that's completely false, right, Kate?
That's completely false. Yes, it's a totally different platform from top to bottom, from the developer standpoint, as far as how they've laid out their platform from a code standpoint, as well as the admin standpoint from for the merchants.
That's right. It's definitely not a slight iteration. I mean, the way to think about it is a completely different platform. All right, the next one is the M2 is replacing M1, so this is just what we need to do. This is just where our fates are aligning here. It's what we need to do. And what we say to that is you shouldn't move to M2 unless you're excited about everything available to you. And, you know, some of you may vary a little bit on the excitement level. Hopefully by the end of the webinar, you'll definitely have something to be excited about no matter what. And we want to make sure all those facts are available to you. But it's important, if you're going to go through the time and expense of moving, that you are excited. You see a direct benefit to your business, like Scott was saying earlier. You also hear, well, hey, I'm not a big fan of M1. I've had problems with Magento on M1, so why in the world would M2 be any different? And I think that's a logical question if you've had a not so great experience with M1. But the good news here is that Magento, and I can vouch for this personally, Magento has really taken those concerns to heart, and that's why they've created M2. That's why it exists, is to address those concerns of merchants that may, you know, have not been a fan of something on Magento 1, but also make it more attractive to merchants who are new to Magento. What do you think, Kate?
I definitely think that's the case. A lot of the benefits that Magento is selling about Magento 2 stems directly from feedback heard from their merchants. So I think that's a pretty big move of a platform to recognize any weaknesses they may have or points of opportunity and then capitalize on them by creating an entirely new platform.
Okay. The next one is, it says, this M2 requires so much work to move to, maybe I should just move to another platform. I mean, we're all attracted to what's easiest, what it doesn't cost as much, and you know, if I'm going to have to put the time and energy and money into this, maybe I should just look around. And that's, again, a legitimate concern, but what we have to say to that is that you need to consider other options, but make sure you first understand everything M2 offers. And that's really the point of today's webinar, is to illuminate those things. You know, you may have some questions, and we want to make sure we address all of those so you can, again, really see the benefits of M2 to where you wouldn't want to look anywhere else.
Yeah, I think that M2 as it stands right now is a very, very robust start for a platform. So as we're going through the feature set, this is just where Magento 2 is beginning, but that's absolutely not where Magento 2 is going to go. So you should definitely take a look at what they already have and then consider the potential, because we're going to talk about some things that Magento will be releasing at the end of the year or next year that are also pretty exciting.
That's right. And I'm about to make a very provocative statement.
Oh,
okay?
no.
All right? And this is a Magento webinar, but I want everybody for just a second to forget about Magento. Again, needle off the record moment number 2. But the whole point of this is for us to advise you on what's best for your business. So let's just think about that for a second. Let's put Magento temporarily to the side. And I want you now to ask yourself 3 questions. Number 1, and write these down if you can. Maybe share these with your team. Think about these in depth. But ask yourself, what are the critical elements you need to run your store? What are the functional elements? What are the things you have to have currently to run your store. And this sounds like a no-brainer statement, Kate, but I think a lot of people will be surprised that that's not often done, right? What's your experience?
Absolutely. As much as people can think of what their business practices are, what their business rules, what is critical to their business, that's something you just need to keep a list of, I think, in general, even if you're not replatforming, because I think things become so day-to-day, so common to you that you don't think that they might be something somebody needs to know when you're considering this. So that's absolutely being as transparent, as in-depth as you can with your own business rules, and considering how your platform ties into that is extremely important.
That's right. Now, the second point is I want you to ask what is currently limiting you. You may be on Magento, you may not be on Magento, but ask what is limiting you on branding, on usability and functionality, or on merchandising. With the way your store is currently set up, when you think about the ideal scenario, are you hitting it or are you not? Is there a big limitation on you currently? You need to be thinking about that. And the third one is what systems will best benefit your staff and processes. So think internally. Think about the people that you have, maybe the people you're about to hire, and think about what is going to best benefit you guys from a process standpoint. Maybe you're already on Magento and you think about, oh, if I moved another platform, that would create havoc with our processes. Or maybe, you know, something that we're on right now could benefit from Magento. I don't know. So find out what is the best benefit for your staff and processes. So as you think about these things, now I want to go into the big idea. Okay, this is going to frame everything else we talked about on this webinar. And the big idea is that you need to envision what's best for your business, not necessarily what's less expensive or easiest, but what is the best move you need to make for your business, and then select the platform that brings the most value to your vision. And if Magento happens to be that answer, then there you go. But that's why I tell people, let's forget about platforms for a second. Think about what's best for your business, then match the solution for that. And unfortunately, a lot of people go to the opposite, and the opposite is very terrible. And that's retrofitting your business plan to platform limitations. And Kate, do we see this all the time?
All the time.
I mean, somebody goes to another platform and they think, this is going to be so easy, I'm going to save all this money, whatever. And they have to think about all the ways, that, again, the ideal of what they want to do with their business, but they have to retrofit to what a platform can't do. And that's one of the beauties about Magento, in my opinion, is that there is no customization ceiling. There is no ceiling with the way Magento is set up. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you never want to put yourself on a platform that works for just now or works for less than what's just now, because that gets you into a situation where it inhibits your own business's growth, it inhibits your own creativity, and you honestly might find yourself having to do this again in a couple of years.
Exactly right. And I think on that point, you know, as you plan, think past today, because you don't want to do this in 2 years. You don't want to spend the money, spend the time to do this. And don't invest into a situation where it's, at best, a lateral move or, at worst, a backwards move. That'll hurt you. And if you're going to move, consider what's going to allow you to scale. And again, that sounds like a no-brainer, but we encounter merchants that don't want to grow, that don't want to scale. I talked to a merchant the other day. He's doing $8 million. I talked about where he wants to grow. He said, I don't want to grow. I just want to be a better $8 million company. And that limits what I can recommend that guy, right? But if you want to grow, if you want to scale, then select the appropriate solution that allows you to do that. And another big point is to always remember to take others' advice with a heaping, helping grain of salt, right? Including ours, right, Kate? Is that fair?
I think that's absolutely
I mean,
fair.
here we are. We're talking about Magento. We're talking about what Magento 2 can do. But test it out. You know, don't just take our word for it. But whoever you listen to, make sure they know what they're talking about. I think the benefit of listening to us is we do this every day. I mean, moving people to Magento 2 is a regularity for us. And, you know, we talk to a lot of merchants that say, well, I've gone onto this message board. I talked to my friend. I talked to this merchant, and they recommended such and such, and maybe that's what's best for me. And your friend, the other merchant, is not in your shoes. They do not have your situation. So be very careful about the kind of advice that you get. Another thing is, remember, there is no perfect platform, including Magento 2. It has a lot of awesome features, but there is no perfect platform. There's only what's best for your business. Okay? So, Kate, that's my big segue. That's my intro act here. I'm going to turn it over to you for why Magento 2 and to talk in depth about the features and benefits.
All right, so I would say the first and most important thing you need to know about moving to Magento 2 if you are on Magento 1 is that Magento 1 is considered end of life by Magento. So by mid-2018, you should be expecting there are no more patch updates, no more version updates, security, that sort of thing. Those are slowly going to trickle out until there are none. If you have an enterprise license, though, Magento is dedicated to supporting you because they don't want to make sure, they don't want people to feel like they've just been abandoned after they've already paid for a license. They're utilizing their enterprise software. So they will take care of you to an extent, but the entire future of the platform is going to be focused on Magento 2. That's where you're going to see all the latest security updates, all the best feature updates, functionality updates. That's all living in Magento.
If you want to stay on the cutting edge of what Magento is doing, Magento 2 is the answer.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So we'll focus first on the feature set for the merchant. So some of the feedback that we get from merchants in our sales process is that they just find Magento 2 unruly to manage. From the admin perspective, there are a lot of folders, there are a lot of different places to go. It's not very intuitive to manage your site every day, and you don't want to spend hours and hours managing orders, managing products, managing categories when you should be putting all of that effort into your business. So what Magento 2 has completely streamlined their admin to not only make it responsive friendly, so if you're on the go and you need to get into your site, you can do that on your phone, but to really enhance the experience, streamline it, make things more intuitive for the user. Magento 2 is offering out-of-the-box integrations for industry standard payment processors like Braintree and PayPal. They've integrated with Avalara, the industry standard for taxes, and Magento 2.2 is also going to offer an out-of-the-box integration with Signified. So they're looking to help provide you as many integrations as they can without having you depend on third-party extensions. Magento has just released the first version of Magento Social, which allows you to push your product onto Facebook for social marketing purposes, to allow customers who are very active on your social media sites to merchandise and lead them back to opportunities where they can make purchases. Magento will also be releasing with 2.2 Magento Shipping, which will really offer a robust solution for shipping that they haven't experienced so far. And then they've also released Magento Order Manager, which is their solution for order management. So if you're looking for a more robust opportunity for order fulfillment, Magento Order Manager is something that you can definitely take a look at. As far as marketing is concerned, one of the most exciting parts about their marketing offerings is customer segmentation. So if you want to provide a different experience for, let's say, women who are 35 to 40 who live in California and who have only bought wine glasses, you can tailor your site's experience directly to that user to help increase conversion opportunities. Content staging and preview allows you to create new products or create sales or stage content updates ahead of time so that you don't have to stay up until midnight waiting for a sale to go live. You can do it weeks ahead of time, set a start date, set an end date. Magento will take care of it completely for you. And then you can also take a look at what that's going to look like before it goes live, so there's no confusion there, so you're not wondering, oh gosh, if I just leave it to go at midnight, what's it going to look like? Magento 2.3, which we're not expecting this year, but we are expecting soon, and covers Magento's acquisition of Bluefoot CMS, which is a really intuitive drag and drop content creator for your website. So that'll definitely help with marketing. Magento 2.2, which we're expecting in the fall, has a very robust feature set for B2B. B2B has been a huge focus of Magento. So they've completely overhauled what it is that they're offering B2B clients, starting with corporate accounts. So companies can create a single company user account and then create users within that. So some users can have different permissions. If you only want people on your sales floor to be able to look at products but not purchase, you can do that. Or have managers be the purchaser for the company, you can do that. You can also set credit limits that companies can use to pay on account. So if a company has a $20,000 credit limit and they've used $15,000, they can see that from their customer dashboard and plan their purchases around that accordingly. Magento also wants to make it easier for your customers who already know what they want to make purchases very, very quickly using the quick order and the requisition list. The quick order allows customers to enter in SKUs either individually or by CSV to make very quick purchases. And a requisition list is an endless, persisting wish list of products that your customers know and love. They order all the time, so they'll be immediately connected to their customer dashboard so they can reference them at any time. And Magento is also releasing a very robust request a quote functionality, which allows customers to build their own quote and submit it to the merchant for either approval, or the merchant can negotiate either prices on products, negotiate for prices on shipping, or offer products instead of the products that the clients have asked for. And then once that quote is approved by all parties, the customer can quickly and easily check out. And this is what we're excited about, not necessarily our merchants, but the features for developers. Along the lines of Magento 2 being a completely different platform, they have changed the way that they do things from top to bottom. So there should be a lot more logic for developers building on the site to create more opportunities to do things in a smarter way as opposed to a convoluted way. Magento offers what they're calling database charting, which is just a fancy way to say that you can have multiple databases to split up the load of your site. So you can separate products from different parts of the site, so nobody on your site from the front end is being affected by any load times, whether in the checkout or because of order management reasons or because of catalog reasons. Magento has also listened to feedback regarding site speed to make various performance enhancements. So one of the biggest things that they've done is added full page caching services like Varnish and Redis out of the box for both Magento Community and Enterprise to help your sites load faster.
All right. Thank you so much, Kate. You're up, Scott.
Yeah, and that's a great overview. And you know, the message I'm taking is, hey, Magento 2 really is a completely different platform from Magento 1. And B, this is a great opportunity to not just migrate, but upgrade, because these are features built to improve performance, to allow a merchant, whether it's a B2C merchant or a B2C merchant, to offer much better experience to customers. And so I think your message and your points around looking at this as an upgrade opportunity, I think, is really important. So when you're looking to upgrade from Magento 1 to Magento 2, you have a few options. And I think it was interesting, you know, going back to that poll, you know, one of the biggest reasons why people may be afraid of making this leap from M1 to M2 is moving all of the data. And so the three options that I'm going to kind of overview here are: one, using Magento's native migration tools to make that leap. And then two, using a migration specialist, whether it's Grow by Data or some other migration specialist to manage the whole migration. The third option, like a plugin, typically applies if you're moving to Magento new from the first time. But if you're looking for a plugin type solution, the Magento native migration tools pretty much solve all that. So we're going to focus on the first two. And so before I jump into this, let's just talk about the type of data that typically needs to be moved. So product data is usually the most common data that people think of when they're doing a migration. And the Magento's native migration tools handle that very well. And the migration specialist obviously covers that as well. You can use the Magento native tools to move your order data and your customer data as well. When it comes to SEO, the Magento native tools do cover some of it. But if you have a lot of needs around, you know, customer 301 redirects, or if you have a lot of custom SEO fields, then in those scenarios you may need more of a migration specialist or someone on your internal team to help guide that. You can rely on the Magento native tools to move credit data and gift card data. But when you're looking to move kind of site pages like FAQs or other content pages like articles or policies or about us, sometimes merchants have just a few of those. Sometimes there could be hundreds or thousands. Then it gets a little tricky and you may need more of a specialist. But largely speaking, the Magento native tools do handle most of the data migration. So the big question that we get asked all the time is, well, how do I know when I should be using the native Magento tools versus when should I be hiring a specialist or preparing my internal team to really get ready for a big project? So obviously, being from Grow by Data, I'm a little skeptical, or I'm sorry, a little biased, and I want to always say you need the specialist. We approach this with kind of a skeptical mind, and so we wanted to run an experiment. We wanted to run an A/B split test where we literally went through and we did a real migration with real data to see which would be more efficient, using the Magento migration tool or using kind of a classic approach that you might expect from a migration specialist. And so in this experiment, we moved over 7,000 products, over 5,000 customers, dozens of orders, 30 plus categories, 100 plus subcategories, and we didn't get into any kind of very custom stuff like needing to dedupe a lot of data or needing to add a lot of empty cells, but it was kind of a good benchmark, and so I'm going to share some of the results. The results are broken down into 3 types of stores. What's called a base-to-base, meaning that you have a template Magento 1 store and you're moving to a template Magento 2 store, or a base to custom, which means you have a template Magento 1 store and you're moving to a custom store, or a custom to custom, meaning that you currently have a custom Magento 1 store and you're moving to a custom Magento store. And a lot of these scenarios could also apply if you're moving from a different platform to Magento. So here's what we found with base to base. So this, again, is a template to a template store. Using the native Magento migration tools, the full data migration, that full scope I went over a few slides ago, literally could be completed in like 10 minutes. Whereas, using a migration specialist, it would take a little bit longer, but kind of a negligible difference. So the point here is that moving all of that data, if there's no kind of complexities or no special circumstances, is very quick. The biggest delta, the biggest difference came on quality checking. So when you're moving a lot of data and you want to minimize any business disruption, which was kind of tied for first and the biggest thing people are fearful about, if you're using the Magento migration tools, they don't really have a lot of QA built in. And so, we believe that every single row of data should be checked. And so if you're using the Magento tools and you check every row of data, you could be looking at hundreds of hours literally when you add everything up, versus using a migration specialist like Grow by Data who uses automated QA tools combined with some kind of manual checking. It's a lot less. However, when you're doing a template to template migration, there's not a lot that can go wrong, and so you may decide that that level of QA really isn't necessary. The next scenario is a base to custom. So again, this is going from a template store to a custom store. So here you see that the actual data migration time is upticking to over an hour, a little bit over an hour, but we still have that same issue with QA. Here, QA becomes somewhat more important because as you move to a custom store, you may be making big changes to navigation. You may be adding new filter options on your category pages to make it easy for shoppers to narrow down to what they're looking for. And so now that QA time becomes kind of more impactful, and you really should be planning on having people inside your organization kind of managing that QA, whereas if you're using a specialist, usually they'll take care of that for you. And then the third scenario is custom to custom. And so here, there could be a lot more complexities because usually the site features and functionalities are going to be much more custom to you. And here the QA really becomes a bigger need. So kind of wrapping, looking at this from a high level, the Magento 1, the template to template, you pretty much can use the migration tools that Magento offers pretty successfully because QA is less important. But as you move into the custom to custom scenario and that QA becomes really important, it probably makes more sense to be working with a kind of a premium migration partner. The other thing to consider is as you go to more custom stores, you care about more things like filling in empty cells. So you may have a filter on the category page that lets you narrow products based on things like color or based on use or based on who a recipient might be if it's a gift. And so that means actually kind of building out new data within the product catalog, new fields. And when you get into those types of scenarios, then you really start increasing complexity, and that's when a partner can really help. So some observations that we made as we went through these, this kind of A/B test, if you will. One is the migration tools from Magento are pretty complete in terms of the data that they move. But again, if you have a lot of custom pages, or even if you have a blog that has a lot of pages, the Magento native tools probably won't handle that super well. Skill sets of users. So if you're a technical person, you can execute those migrations as quickly as I shared. But if you're not a technical person, then it'll take a lot longer. So, all those estimates assume that you have someone that is kind of technical enough that they could be writing kind of SQL queries and things like that. So that could be an important consideration. If you don't have someone technical on your internal team, then you may need more of a white glove approach. The data transformations, so kind of like I was talking about earlier, filtering out certain fields of data into new fields to enable filters or to add better information on product pages. Data enrichment, like locating new data for the catalog. And then just the quality assurance, if you have some concerns about how to handle all that, it could be time to work with more of a premium partner. So in summary, if you have a templated store, if you have minimal SKU counts, if your data is simple with minimal variance, if you're more of a B2C merchant, then the Magento tools can really work well. And the cost there is pretty much zero. You just have to be hands-on. If you have more of a custom store, if you have high SKU counts, variance, if you're more of a B2B store, you're a hybrid merchant, then it might be time to work with a specialist. Moving from a new platform onto Magento can be expensive, but going from M1 to M2, it's still very cost effective. So those types of migrations typically start at $2,500. If they're well planned, then it can be very smooth and easy. Certainly a lot easier than your experience may have been when you first came onto Magento at the very beginning. And so why use Grow by Data in UI Studios? Well, I've seen, and as I mentioned at the outset, I and Eric as well, we've been doing this for more than 15 years. I started in e-commerce 20 years ago, and I've seen a lot of merchants go from platform A to platform B, and especially over the last 8 years, a lot of merchants moving to Magento. And I've seen a lot of horror stories. And the reason for a lot of the horror stories was people chose partners that really weren't following a buck stops here mentality. And the reason why I like working with UI Studios and we partner successfully on so many merchants is that UI Studios and Grow by Data both believe that it's our job to anticipate problems, our job to articulate roadmaps that are going to make a migration successful and to make the migration more of an upgrade. And it's our job when issues come out during the project, and they always do, it's our job to solve it and to try and not punt back to a merchant as often as possible. A lot of other agencies and developers don't have that mentality. So when you're looking for more of a white glove service approach, I think our solution is a great fit. The second, from a data migration perspective, is to take all the data with you. So, if you have a lot of CMS pages or blogs or a lot of custom content that won't move over easily, and you need someone to be writing scrapers or to be supplementing with manual research or to really get their hands dirty, you're going to find that our approach is going to deliver on that. And then the third is just making sure that every row of data is quality checked so that when you go live, it's as smooth and as issue-free and as non-disruptive as possible. And that includes SEO. So the bottom line here, and again, this is back to what the message that Eric and Kate have been sharing, don't just migrate, upgrade. And I'm going to give you kind of an unsolicited plug here, Eric, on the UI Studios side. So again, I've seen a lot of merchants work with the UI Studios. And I saw a story on CNBC this morning that kind of resonated with me. The CEO of Five Below was on, and he was talking about why that company's stock price is through the roof and it's being so successful in this case, offline retail. And he said it comes down to two things, especially when you're competing against Amazon. Are you offering value, and are you creating an experience? And what I find with UI Studios is that you're in the business of creating an experience that will make shoppers want to be loyal to a brand. A lot of times when people go through migrations and upgrades, they look at it purely from a technical perspective, but it's that experience and having that have synergy with kind of the behind the scenes process and data work that really makes an upgrade successful. So Eric, why don't you kind of talk to us about what someone may do if they're interested in moving towards more of an upgrade and making the Magento 2 experience one that's positive and accretive for their business.
Absolutely, and thanks, Scott. I appreciate that. Good points that you just raised. Like we were talking about, in order to upgrade and not just have a migration, you need a plan. And if you feel overwhelmed, it's most likely because you don't have a plan. And the good news is we can help you develop one. We'll talk more about that here in just a bit. But as we mentioned earlier, Scott and we do this every day, and that's one reason why we were selected Commercial Partner of the Year. We have experience to back up what we're talking about. And the good news too is if you start now, the experience will be fun and rewarding. Now, you're laughing there, Kay, about me putting fun and rewarding, right? A little bit of cynicism there. I get it. But when you think about it, when you think about taking your brand to the next level, when you think about giving your customers a great new experience, you invest into their needs. That's fun. That's fun thinking about what you can do with your brand, and really sidestepping anything that's created a problem in the past. And the rewards speak for themselves. What it does for your bottom line, like I said, what it does for your customers. And when you get up out of the bed in the morning, you think about how to make their lives better. That you're investing in lifestyles essentially. You're investing in other people's needs. That's pretty rewarding when you think about it at the end of the day. And if you wait, you run a risk. You risk falling into common migration scenarios. It creates a very hectic environment. I mean, all of you are busy. All of you are running your business, and you don't have enormous amounts of time to make a migration happen last minute. And so it's definitely not going to be an upgrade in that scenario. It can be extremely costly. When you wait to the last minute, that's when mistakes happen, and that can also have a direct impact on the overall cost. And it's essentially less positive for your bottom line. And so think about those things when you consider the overall timeline in order to complete an upgrade. Now, if you are interested in what we're talking about and you feel like we've covered some things that are of direct use to you, I'd like for you to type upgrade into the comments field. What you'll get if you type that is Scott and our teams can prepare an upgrade roadmap. Scott, you want to kind of illustrate a little bit about what that includes?
Absolutely. So, think about the various considerations when you're looking to upgrade experience for your shoppers and for your internal users, as you were talking about before. You care about things like branding. You care about user experience. You care about how the systems will integrate. If you have existing ERP system, for example, that you're using and you want to integrate to, you have to plan for that. At the same token, if you're looking at putting a new ERP system in or a new order management system in, you have to plan for that as well. From a data migration standpoint, it's important to think about all the data that has to be moved, to evaluate it, and to have a project plan. So a lot of people, when they start their migration or their upgrade, they kind of do it by the seat of their pants, and they end up finding out issues, 3 months in that they wish they had anticipated that become costly. So the whole point of an upgrade roadmap is to think about all of these things, to put together a plan. And that way, once we get into execution mode, your partners like EY Studios and Grow by Data and any other partners you may be working with and your internal team, we're all aligned and we're focused and we're beating to the same drum. And ultimately, that's going to make the migration and upgrade go faster, and it's going to make it go more cost effectively. And I think what you'll find is a lot of companies provide this type of roadmap, and they charge a lot of money for it. But I think today, Eric, you're kind of sharing a special offer for people on the webinar.
That's right. And what we want to do is reach out to you. We've actually looked at every single registrant's website prior to the webinar. We've looked at some opportunities and isolate some of those, already taken some good notes. And we'd love to reach out to you and see how we could discuss that and help assist in this upgrade roadmap. Keep in mind that what we're offering here is not a one-size-fit-all, type of scenario. This is something that's written specifically for your business, and it comes after we're able to consult with you, find out exactly what your needs are. We don't believe in a one-size-fits-all solution, and so we want to make sure that this roadmap is very specific to your business. So we'd love a chance to talk with you if it would benefit you. But again, we really appreciate you guys joining us on the webinar. We've covered a lot of really good information that I hope you can put to use. Kate, what are your overall thoughts? What do you think at the end of the day from this webinar?
I think, honestly, our thesis statement is very, very, very strong. The difference between just migrating and upgrading is absolutely critical, because as much as it might be a pain for your business to migrate to a different platform, you also have to think about it from the perspective of your customer base. And if they're not satisfied with what they're seeing on their website, or if they're having a very frustrated experience on your website, then you owe it to them, in addition to yourself, to upgrade to a better user experience.
Very well said. We also have a survey at the end of the webinar. If you wouldn't mind filling that out, let us know how we did, and hopefully you'll join us on future webinars where we'll be talking about more about the benefits of Magento 2, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks again for attending, and Scott, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.